Good morning, Milwaukee. My name is Pastor Mose Fuller, pastor of the St. Timothy Community Baptist Church, and also a member of the board of Columbia Savings and Loan Association. So, Attorney Core Players, she's not with us today, so I'm sitting in for her this morning. And I have my good friend, my special guest again, Pastor Greg Lewis. How you doing, Pastor Lewis?
Good, on top of the world.
On top of the world. Well, I tell you, man, you sharp as a tack again.
Oh, no, man.
He's hooked up there, his brother right out. Yeah, on top of the world. So things been going good for you, man?
Well, gotta go.
I hear you. You gotta go.
Yeah.
Good. So listeners, I just like to say good morning, Milwaukee, and everybody in the studio. Good morning to you also. So Pastor Lewis, what we're going to be talking about today is, and listeners, we're going to be talking about the power as it relates to what I do at the bank as a board member of the bank, and how important banking is to the Black community, and especially this bank, because it's a unique situation. Columbia Savings and Loan in the Black community, in the city of Milwaukee, in the Black community, been around over 100 years, Pastor.
Wow.
100 years. Think about that, man.
And people still don't know about it.
Still don't know that much about it. Still don't support it like we really should. And especially in the political climate that we're in, with all of the confusion and stuff that's going on in our country at this time, is that we should be acquainted with the especially banking institutions in our community, and especially if we only have one that's been around for 100 years. Now, there have been other Black banks in this city, but they're no longer with us.
Wow. Yeah,
I remember.
That's unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. And that's the way it is all across the country, And I guess the idea, Pastor, when you think about the idea of having a Black bank,
Mm-hmm.
and that speaks to the fact that the reason that you would have a Black bank is because other banks didn't want to do business with you. We didn't want to lend you money.
Wow.
Didn't want to lend you money. You had to go someplace else to get the resources, to get the money. If you wanted to build, like what you're doing, the type of work you're doing in this community, you need access to capital.
Right.
It
would be great.
Yeah. And then you have access to capital, and then you would want to, deal with somebody that appreciate, you culturally and the type of work that you're doing.
Correct.
And a lot of the mainstream institution don't do that. And so that's basically why this institution was started back in 1924, because the few Black people that they had in the city of Milwaukee at that time, and it wasn't many of us, Pastor Lewis, but now we got the numbers.
Yeah, not much has changed. I mean, I don't want to say there's been no change, but it's basically the same. Still got to deal with racist attitudes and people who really don't understand it. We all got to work together.
Yeah,
man. If you really want to be great, America, we got to forget about that racism thing, because it's going to take everybody doing what needs to be done to really establish this country as a great country.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you hold people down, as long as you keep people back, you're missing out on so many valuable developments that could have been obtained if everybody had a fair shake. So it's just it's 2025, man, and all that is time out for all that nonsense, man. It really is.
And and that is so important what you said. And we live in a global economy.
Yeah,
a global economy.
And racism is global.
Yeah, and you look at some of the stuff that our main competition, China, is doing. Man, it's just China is actually running rings around this country in terms of the development of what they're doing over there. And then, and if you look at us, we're still fighting them old, like you said, non-productive racial wars, cultural wars, you know what I mean? Dealing with issues that don't affect anything as it relates to the country's growth.
Right.
And it definitely doesn't affect anything as it relates to the different ethnic groups in this country growth. You're dealing with racism, DEI, saying people can't do this, you can't have this, your name can't be on something. You know what I mean? Because if you're black, if you're company, you can't have a policy that want to help people that's been at a disadvantage.
It's time out for all that, man. Everybody needs fair shake. Period. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Man, let's be great.
We have a call. Go ahead, caller.
Good morning.
How you doing this morning?
Good morning, gentlemen, and a blessed and joyous Father's Day celebration to the both of you, Lewis and Fuller.
Thank you.
Good morning, as usual, Mr. Rideout, Tyrone W. speaking. Good morning, Milwaukee.
Brother Tyrone, good morning.
Good morning. Well, very quickly, I know, and you're absolutely right. Trump done lost. He done fell too many times and knocked that eggnog loose in his little peanut there, man. Look at LA and California. But anyway, long story short, for us to, and you're absolutely right. I mean, whatever happens to the rich people, just like we got a soup line we can go to. Now, if they stop taking the money, whatever banks, credit unions, or whatever their banks, and the oligarchs, the billionaires. Mm-hmm. Now, even when they don't take their money, and I'll just listen to you over the air. Is there a rich people soup line too? Do they?
I guess Elon didn't want to get in that soup line because he changed. He changed his
tune. Do they have their own soup line? All right, thank you. Love you a lot. Thanks. Have a great day.
I think they just create soup lines.
Yeah, I hear you. They create situations.
They create situations. And that see we got a whole, with racism, and I keep trying to tell people this, racism is a social construct.
Yep.
People invented it and created it and structured it so that they could keep power and resources. Mm-hmm. So racism was actually a race to the resources.
A race to the resources.
To the resources, to the money, the diamonds, the gold, the silver, the oil. And once people got a hold of it and became filthy rich, they wanted to make sure that they could maintain that status. So us who are poor fight over the crumbs. Mm. And they always want to create a scenario that would keep us fighting. Mm. So this thing called racism was invented.
Invented for that purpose.
Yeah, it was invented for that purpose. It wasn't about color. It's about money. It's about economics.
Always about money, boy.
But now it's about color because most of the riches and resources were in where? Yeah. Africa.
Yep.
So black folks were being made the enemy, you could say, so that people could keep their resources in Africa. Mm-hmm. And it turned into something else after, the slave trade and all that. So they had to really come up with scenarios that justified treating people like animals. Stuff, you stink, you're dumb, you're a thief, all this kind of negativity on a person so they could justify how you treated these people. See, this is why we treat them this way, because they really are, they're subhuman. Right. And that thing has developed into something that has inculcated the whole world, because it's a global social construct.
Yep.
It's globally adhered to that people of color are less than, but it was invented by folks who had all the money.
Who had all the money.
While we fighting on the ground about everything, 1% of the population of the world has more money and resources than 95% of the rest of the world put together. Yeah. So they had to create a scenario to keep that money, man, and they created that racism even back then for us, so people would not like people of color, and they have bamboozled us all, because now, white folks really believe they're better than you and me because of their color. Yeah. But, scientists have proven that 99.9% of DNA of all people is exactly the same.
Mm.
So there is, you know the only difference: height, eye color, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as, you know, thinking, brain capacity, there's no difference.
Yeah.
But they have created this scenario to keep us fighting on the ground, so they go laughing to the bank about everything, and we don't really understand it. So we sit here on the ground fighting when we should be working together.
You know, exactly.
You know, because listen, you know, they talk about the average income of white folks, but if you got a bunch of billionaires, almost trillionaires, of course your income average is going to be high.
Mm-hmm.
But most white folks, they need help too. You know, I mean,
you know,
but the privilege is there because of the construct,
of
the social construct.
You know,
the basic manufacturing has done its job.
Yeah.
You know, so
well,
you know, but we need to understand that so we can start working together and stop fighting each other, and you know, look at the real enemy. I mean, dude, you know, you've convinced me that I ought to hate this brother because of his color, and then you convince the brother that he's inferior, and then you know we have this constant battle on the ground, and they running off with all the dough, man, laughing at us while we sit there fighting each other.
Yeah.
And it's really, really happening in America right now in a major way.
Yeah.
Because that has been the antagonistic way that our leaders are perpetuating this battle is certainly cranked up over the last few years.
Yeah.
And now you got people with crazy nonsense. Man, it's 2025, Pastor. Why are we still talking about this thing like this?
Yeah.
Man, that 2025 is just in my head. Man, it's 2025. Why are we still doing this way?
And trying to go backwards.
Man, go backwards. See, and that's the other thing.
Yeah.
They talking about new world order. It's already a new world order. It's in place right now. They trying to maintain it.
Yeah.
You know, racism is the new world order.
You know, you know what we're talking about, and what I wanted to put some emphasis on is the, you know, we're talking about disadvantages and things like that, but I always maintain that Black people in this country has an advantage. You know, we're consumers, basically.
Yeah, we're consumers.
You know, it said, and I'm looking at something I got here is the power of Black dollars. You know, how we spend our money. I mean, that's important.
That's interesting.
Very. It says here, the power of Black dollars, categories where the percentage of Black spending is greater in proportion to their population. Now, we're basically about 14% of the population of this country.
Right.
About 14, maybe a little bit more, 14, 15%.
Yeah.
But the way we spend our money, man, we spend so much money on all kinds of stuff, and people out in businesses, and we don't have a whole lot of, we got businesses, but as in proportion to our population, we won't have a lot. You just look around where we are in this located right now. You know, how many Black businesses do you see around here? But everybody is spending money, and everybody is making money. For example, when you look at the power of Black dollars, when you talk about ethnic hair and beauty aid. Think about that. Black folks spend so much money there, man, and everybody is making money off of us.
Except us.
Yeah. Ethnic hair and beauty aids, the totals that spend on that is in this country is $63.5 million annually. And Black folks spend 54.4 million of that.
Wow.
Almost 85% of the money that's spent on that is Black folks spending the money there. And then you talk about how money
is hair products?
Yeah, ethnic hair and beauty aids.
And they better start wearing naturals again. Man, that's crazy.
This is really, you know, I was at a little graduation where my grandson, they had a little ceremony awards at where my grandson go to school at. And we were sitting there, and some parents could go there, and we were sitting in the audience. and some of those little girls in K5 and first grade, man, they was coming up there to get their awards, and some of the braids and extensions they had on their hair, man, came all the way down to their waist.
Yeah,
And that stuff is not
that's a whole nother issue.
It is. It is.
You know,
but you know what I'm
because
saying? The way you spend your money, though, man.
That just go to show you, man, we don't even like the way we look. We don't even like our natural existence.
Yeah.
You know, we gotta be looking like somebody else, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So you know, you're exactly right.
To
but
be
just
satisfied with ourselves.
Exactly. But think about this idea here. If you had control the circulation of your money, in order to control circulation of your money, you got to have, you need some banks in the community.
Right.
You need some banks in the community.
Exactly.
Well, go ahead, caller. Caller, you there? Go ahead.
This is Rick from Germany, fellas.
Hey, Vic, how you doing, man?
From Germany.
I disagree with you, man. I think there's always been poor people on planet Earth, and there are plenty of poor people in America. People have access to some money, but when you're poor, you don't prioritize very often, and it goes through your hands like diarrhea.
Hey, but Rick, but you see, that's why you have to change your thinking at. See, it's, you know what it is. You know, I think it's a mental concept. You have to change your thinking about money, how you look at money, and how you view money. That is important. So my perspective is that we're only poor as we think. And if you think poor, like you said, Rick, you know, money go through your hands like, you know, diarrhea. You know, why is that? It's because you don't think about money. You haven't been educated about money in your home. I know that's true for me, Pastor Lewis.
But
you know,
I don't think we're disagreeing with him.
Yeah, we're not disagreeing with you, but I'm just saying.
I don't think we are. I wonder why he said he disagreed with us, because all you were saying is that the way we spend our money.
Yeah.
You know, we do have some resources in our community.
Right. We have a whole lot of resources.
Yeah, but he said,
Rick, are you still there?
I'm still here, sir.
Yeah.
But I was just saying, you said everybody's making money and everybody has money, but you know, you also lined up the idea that there's 1% that has an obscene amount of money. So, I mean, I think taking care of your health and getting an education is paramount. Yes. I'm done, fellas.
Yeah, I think so.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate that.
I think he's absolutely right. But you know what? We don't even get those opportunities, because, you know, we have young people who are brilliant, but when they finish going to school, they ain't brilliant no more. Why is that?
Yep. You know.
But anyway, go ahead, man.
And then
I don't want to get on a whole different subject.
Right, exactly, because we're talking about the power of black dollars. Right. And this is in terms of, you know, really in terms of how our money circulates, how communities' money circulating, and how wealth is built in certain communities. That wealth is built in certain communities because some of those communities have things in that community that the people need, and that money just keeps circulating in that community. You know, if you have a community, for example, if you have, everybody need food stores. You have community in the black community. How many grocery stores are owned by black people?
Man, we used to be black people owning all these businesses, especially the ones everything.
On the counter.
They own their own homes, all of that. Yeah. But now that is something like, man, we struggling. We last in the country in home ownership for black people here in Milwaukee. I mean, something happened. You know, this whole mindset, like you said before, something has changed. And you know, I think it's I think it's been calculated to make sure that you don't reach the level of development that would cause you to grow. I just really believe that. I mean, because when you have a structure that continues to diminish your probabilities, that's a problem, man. Mm-hmm. You have to be extra strong to overcome that. And I think that's what we're missing. That we have the ability to be extra strong, but we don't have the patience, and we get angry, and we don't do more like we could to be where we need to be. I don't know if people understand what I'm saying, but we know what we up against.
What you're saying is what played out in slavery time. Now, with some slave, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, others that were slaves that made a decision that I'm not going to be a slave.
Right.
I'm going to do something to free myself.
Exactly.
And then once I free myself, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that my people are freed also.
I'm going to go the extra mile. Exactly.
And that's what they did, after slavery. They did that in Jim Crow in the South.
Mm-hmm.
When they had when you paid your money to get on the buses. I mean, that's a classic example of how black folk decided to stand up. And that's the type of tenacity and the type of stuff that we need right now.
Yeah.
And where we are living right now, to say, I'm not taking this mess that folks are throwing at me. I'm going to support my community. I'm going to support the institution in my community. I'm going to support whatever's in my community that's going to benefit and help our people. And
but in order to do that, you got to know that you are not free.
Yeah.
See, it's like Harriet said, man, I could have freed a whole lot more people, but I couldn't convince them they wouldn't free.
That's a part. I
couldn't convince them.
There's
like now people, man, we got chains on our minds now. Now that's the ultimate enslavement.
Yeah, it is. That is a book in the Bible called the Book of Judges, and that's the mentality. Because in the beginning of that chapter, the beginning of that book, it says the people that when they came out of Egypt, and they made the transition to come to the Promised Land, it's the people that didn't know, the Lord. That was a group that didn't know the Lord, didn't know what the Lord had done for the people. So they decided to live, in their own way, as opposed to really, believing that there's a God that could lift them out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is, that's the way it is, kind of like where we are right now.
Yeah.
With our situation, some of us don't understand the struggle.
Right.
Don't understand the struggle. And when you
right.
look at
don't
that,
understand the struggle.
When you look at that, pastor,
see, because
that could be
so sophisticated, they have become subliminal.
And then not only that, people that was leading the struggle maybe slacked up a little bit.
Yeah.
And didn't teach that next generation.
Well,
you see what I'm saying?
We thought we had
made it or something like that.
We thought we had overcome.
But we haven't.
But I be saying, man, if I hear that song one more time, I'm gonna borrow a gun and shoot myself. I ain't kidding you, man. We shall overcome.
Yeah,
I'm like, hey, man, I can't keep doing that.
I know I'm keeping the same old.
I'm gonna borrow a gun. Anyway, I don't want to play like that.
Okay,
but it is that serious, man.
It is
that same old. No, man, we got to do something about our situation, and it needs to start like yesterday.
It needs to start like yesterday. Break time. Okay, listen, we're getting ready to go on the break. We'll be right back on the other side of the break. Good morning again, Milwaukee. My name is Pastor Mose Fuller, pastor of the St. Timothy Baptist Church in the city of Milwaukee, located 3701 North Titonia Avenue, and also a member of the board of directors of Columbia Savings and Loan. We have a caller. Go ahead, caller.
Good morning.
How you doing? Good morning.
I'm doing fine. I've been listening to some of your dialogue. Have any of you ever read the Willie Lynch letter of 1712?
Yep, we read it, brother.
Well, you need to read it again because it's very clear about what the plan was and what has been implemented, and we re-initiate it all the time in our households, in our families.
Yep.
That is part of the major problem we have. It's not about what they're doing to us, it's what we're doing to ourselves based upon the indoctrination that we were given based on this plan that they created. That it says, if I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. 300 years passed in 2012, and we're still doing the same stupid stuff based upon their indoctrination of trying to control us, and we're allowing it because we're not maintaining families. We don't teach family. We don't talk about commitment to each other. We're committed to the dollar bill based upon how the white folks indoctrinated us. They think wealth is money. Wealth is committed relationships, especially in families. When you have all these children out here with no fathers in the home, who's teaching them?
Yep.
The mother's not, because she's too busy trying to keep a roof over their head and food on the table. So, social media, the television, hip-hop, TikTok, everybody's educating our children but us.
Yep.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
I don't think we disagree with him either.
No,
And I know who that is.
Yeah.
I know who that was.
Man,
but I don't think we
no, we're not disagreeing.
at all.
I mean, if you're any kind of pastor standing in any pulpit anywhere, dealing with any type of people on Sunday morning, that's the type of stuff people.
But he mentioned that Willie Lynch.
Yeah, we read it. I mean.
No, I dissected it.
Yeah, and looked at it.
Not only read it, but broke it down.
And when it comes to this, man, when you look at our history, you look at that Willie Lynch letter, it can, work with people that allow themselves to be controlled by doctrine from other folks. So even you had some of the slaves.
That was the key word he kept mentioning, was indoctrination.
Yeah.
But it ain't just black folks who were indoctrinated.
Yeah.
It was other folks too.
White folks indoctrinated.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a book right now, man. See, when people look at our country and they think that they're only poor black folks. Yeah, they got more poor white folks in this country than we are. They're going through struggling just as much as we are. You know what I mean? That the same type of economic stuff that's taking place in Washington. That would, with this administration they got in, it's going to affect just as many white folks and other disadvantaged or marginalized folks as black folks.
See, and then I think I don't really know how to explain this, and I think people really get the wrong idea because they think that all white folks doing well, or
they're not doing well.
Ain't all doing nothing. Some probably are, and some are doing tremendously well. And so when you average out those incomes, it's very high. But the majority of the people are not making the kind of incomes that can keep a family sustaining. How can I put this? A family sustaining income in a place where you live comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
The struggle is all over the place, is what I'm trying to say. But some people have more money at that higher level than others
Mhm.
have, and then that average will come to a higher average because you averaging those people along with all the poor people that they are in this circle with, and it seems like it ain't that many poor whites, but no,
Right.
it's a bunch of them. And we need to be fighting together to get things right, but we won't because we got this thing that has been perpetuated, the Willie Lynch letter. You know, we got to make them fight each other.
Mhm.
It ain't just black folks fighting each other. Man, white folks
Everybody
don't get
fighting each other.
along either.
But then see,
I don't even know where we get that from. Like white folks get along with each other like crazy, man. This state right now, you know, we do voting. This state right now is split between Democrats and Republicans, split right down the middle. And we make the difference if we come out and vote. And we won't even take advantage of that because we've been indoctrinated with the idea that we don't have power. And that is something that has perpetuated for a long, long time.
You know, it's just like, you know, I'm on the board of directors of the Columbus Savings Law. Now, see, the bank is 20th and Final Light is there for everybody, black, white, brown, whoever, that need access to capital, that need some place, that need an institution that care about you, no matter what color you are, no matter what, you know what, no matter what color you are, you can bank there and you can have access to capital.
Yeah.
You know, and so basically, I think it goes back to what type of mentality that you have. Are you going to be, you know, like the brother said, the Willie Lynch letter, are you going to be controlled? Are you going, you know, the Willie Lynch letter was basically saying we have a plan in place that can control these slaves
to make sure you never
if
get
they
the idea
don't
that you are
learn
somebody
how to think.
Exactly.
Now, I'm wondering why it didn't control Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass. They were slaves. You know why it didn't? Because they decided in their mind that they wasn't going to be slaves. Frederick Douglass said he decided in his mind that he wasn't going to be a slave for life. Think about that. You decide in your mind that you're not gonna be poor for life. You're gonna do something to change your life. You decide in your mind that I'm gonna spend my money with as many black institutions as I can that's gonna help make our community better. That's how other folks is doing.
But see, that kind of attitude really starts.
It starts
at
at
home.
You know, we looked at some statistics. We had looked at that. It said 39% of black people, black households are headed by married couples. 39%. So that means that 61% of black households in this country are not headed by married couples. So you see that now what the gentleman called in, that's what he was talking about.
Right.
So if you don't have a man, you don't have biblically speaking, God created where it says that God looked at man and said, it's not good for man to be alone. So man needs some help. Men need a helpmate. Everybody's not going to get married. I understand that, but I'm just saying as a whole, if you're going to have a constructive home, and we know that there are some homes that are constructive without the man in the home, but you're not going to have, 61% of the homes can't be, can't have have a lot of single parents in there, and the majority, we know a majority of those parents are women. They need some help, man. Those boys need to be taught. Those girls need to be taught. They need to know what a role model looks like, and he shouldn't be somebody that's coming on some playing some basketball, Pastor Lewis, or somebody that you ain't gonna never have any contact with.
Well,
but it's gonna be somebody that's getting up every morning, that's going to work out of your house.
That destruction has been in effect since the slave trade here in this country. Tearing up families, making sure you don't have a leader. That's what lynching was all about, is to make sure that if you get somebody out of line, you let everybody see them get lynched, and that sends them a message that if you do this, that's what's going to happen to you too. See, lynching ain't just hanging. Yeah. People think that lynching is making an example out of you so that the other people can see that if you get out of line, this is what's going to happen to you. And that's what well, even with Christ, he was, put up on that cross. It was like a lynching. It said, man, if y'all run around here doing like him, this was going to happen to you. And that's what happened in America. A lot of, especially strong men, they say, I'll get the strongest man in the camp, strong, big mouth. Here, you come over here. Then they tar feather them, take the horses, set them on fire, and push the horses each way. They tear the man in half while he was alive. And that's terrifying for a family.
And you're a
to
slave,
watch.
That anybody, it can happen to anybody.
That's
Anybody on the plantation, that
that's
can
a
happen.
lynching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody.
So then what you're gonna say after that? Ooh, I ain't doing that.
Right.
I don't want that to happen to me. And
Now,
then that's what happened. So you tell your son, don't you do that, because this could happen to you.
right.
And that's so what we've come to, first of all, is being struck with fear. And I think that still is kind of existing in us, because people don't want to stand up because they're afraid of the repercussions. Now, if you are courageous enough to stand up, knowing that there will be repercussions, that's a whole different mindset. I'm just one who just believes that if I don't stand up, I might as well not be here. Because dying ain't much of a living.
Yeah.
If I'm the Walking Dead, that ain't much of a living, man.
Well, dying, boy.
Dying ain't much of a living. I'm ready to, we're gonna fight till the end.
Fight till the end. Also when I look at the power with black dollars, listen to this one right here, Lewis, how we spend our money in relationship to and what we spend our money on.
Yeah.
It says here, women fragrances, black spend $152 million. That's about 22.3% of that. The total amount in this country that is spent on women fragrances is about 679.4 million. And so I remember now, our population in this country is about 14%.
Mm-hmm.
And so we spending 22% of that. So so basically what I'm saying, when you look at our money, the problem becomes how we spend it, and how and the circulation of that money in our community.
Right.
If we don't have any businesses in there that we own, if you look at the fragrances in this community, near where we are right now, how many areas in this community have black places where we can spend that money and it would circulate more. You don't have any of them, see?
We got personality.
Yeah, we have personality up there. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
In the Silver Mill Mall. It got nice oils, nice smelling oils.
Yeah, you're right.
Go there.
But then look at the spending power we got.
Yeah.
Man, I'm here to say, listeners, we have power.
We got power.
We got some serious power.
I just told you where the power really exists. White America is split right down the middle, man.
We can win those elections that we've got out there and voted.
Man, we could control
everything. In this state, we could have a black senator,
But we say our vote don't count.
Our vote
we
count.
Don't want to vote. Man, we fought for the vote. Everybody voting but us.
Yeah.
Now, women took advantage of it. Other nationalities took advantage of it. Midgets took advantage of it. We're the only ones who ain't taking advantage of it, man.
And
the GBL. I shouldn't even go there because they took advantage. Everybody take advantage of the fights that we have fought, except us.
And we should be taking advantage of it.
But we don't play that kind of. We don't go in depth in playing chess with these people, man, because we think we fighting other poor people. Man, I don't care what this cat think. He broke as a joke. I don't care what he think. I'm broke too. Why should I care what he think? And he ain't even thinking right. I don't care what he think. We need to be getting together and finding out who we are and get along with one another so we can fight the real battle, which is the manipulation of our minds, especially over time, the manipulation of our minds.
Right.
The indoctrination, I like that, you know, what he said. The indoctrination of our minds. That's what we need to be understanding so that we can fight the right person. Man, how you swinging that air? We swing it air, man.
Yeah. The Apostle Paul said that in 1 Corinthians, I think about the 9th chapter. He said, I don't want, he said, when you fight, you don't want to fight without purpose. You don't want to fight just just beat the air.
Right.
He said, you don't want to fight he said, you want to fight with purpose.
You want to
so
fight with purpose.
So that after the fight, after the struggle, you want to make sure that you have that you have an award, that you have something, that you've gained something. So our struggle should be intentional. Our fight should be intentional. And that's where we are right now. And so that's why I'm saying, when you look at, it's very simple. You have one black bank in the community, and if you want that bank to thrive and be a blessing in every community, I don't care what community it is, you need a thriving financial institution that's going to cater to the people in that community. And
to add on to that, in all thy getting, get an understanding. And that's what we don't have. Yeah. We had 2 callers call here, and they were saying the exact same thing that we were saying, I believe, but they thought we were opposing their thoughts.
Yeah.
See, because we don't get an understanding, Pastor.
Yeah.
And that's why we are so divided, because we really don't get an understanding, man. You got to get an understanding.
Yeah, listen to this from Pastor Lewis. Now they talk about they got feminine hygiene, feminine hygiene, how much money black folks spend with that. Talking about the power of black dollars, how we spend our money based on the population that we are in this country. 14% of the country's population, but the way we spend our money is always exceeding how many people we have in this community. Are we going to take a break? We're going to take a break. Listen, we'll be right back on the other side.
Amen.
Good morning again, Milwaukee. I'm Pastor Mose Fuller, St. Timothy Baptist Church, and also board member of Columbia Savings and Loan. We are back for the last few minutes of the show. We were talking about the power of the black dollar, and we was talking about the power of black dollars and how we spend our money, and the amount of money that we have to spend on certain items. And we had stopped with feminine hygiene, $54.1 million annually out of a total of $257 million. That's about 21%. Remember, listeners, we're only 14% of the population. And the next one is men's toiletries. What men's toiletries, and men spend about $62 million annually, black men, out of a total of 309 million, and that's about 20% of the money spent on those items. And as I said before, we have money to spend. We're consumers, and everybody seems to know that. And we seem to think that some of us seem to think that we're the only one that don't think that we don't have money. But I'm telling you right now, in this country, black folks have a great deal of money. Matter of fact, the black people's gross national product, if it was separated from the gross national product of this country, it would be right around $2 trillion in 2025 annually. That is a lot of money. That is an exceedingly amount of money. It's a great deal of money. So black folks have a lot of spending power. We just have to coalesce that. We have to come together, bring that together, and do things with institutions that's going to benefit our community. As I said, I'm a member on the board of Columbia Savings and Loan, and that institution, listeners, has been around for 100 years. Now, when I first was acquainted with Columbia Savings and Loan, that was in 1995, and I had been in the city of Milwaukee since 1969. And Columbia Savings and Loan was started in 1924. 1924. And I came to Milwaukee in 1969. I was 17 years old, and I never knew anything. Listen to what I'm really saying. I didn't know anything about a great institution like that was started, listeners, that was started and organized and because black people that were living in the city of Milwaukee during the 20s and before then and after then couldn't access capital from the mainstream banks. So you had two individuals, Wilbur and Artie Hilliard, decided that they was going to do something about it. And so they started the institution, Columbia Savings and Loan Bank. And when you're a bank, you really want to have access to everybody's money, just not black folks' money, but you want to have access to everybody's money. And that's how banks really grow. So we're that institution that's just happened to be in the inner city, but we are encouraging everyone to come and check us out, look at us, and see what we're doing. And if you want to, open up an account, put your money there, we are there to help. So that's what I would encourage. As I said before, I'm a pastor in this community, and I've been a pastor in this community for 30 years. Now, I would admonish every pastor, I really would, and I know pastors have the money somewhere. I would admonish them to put some of their money at Columbia Savings and Loan. If you don't want to come out, just come by and look at it. Look and see what we're doing. We are in a new leadership, vibrant leadership, leadership that really have the vision of the community at heart, that want to do things in the community that's really going to make a difference as we move forward. So listeners, I'm out of time. Hey, it's been nice being with you. Attorney Players will be back on next week. So we've had a great time. Money Talks. See you next week. God bless you.